They said it couldn't be done. Who is they, you ask? The hypothetical antagonists to this hypothetical situation. Duh. 2 fully featured 100-watt amplifiers, complete with a 5-band power EQ, dedicated speaker outputs, and dedicated XLR cab simulated outputs, all on a cute little pedal board. But I say, nay, it absolutely can be done, and I'm gonna show you how with the help of this little monster, the Seymour Duncan Power Stage 100 Stereo. Let's do it. All right, guys, hope you're doing great out there today. If this is your first time here at my channel, my name is Kyle, and welcome to Belligerent Studios. What I do is I take all sorts of awesome high-gain related guitar equipment, I record it with a simple setup, and I give you the unprocessed audio on your end. And those of you who have been around my channel for a while know that I am a tube-amp man. The blood of the tube-amp elders flows through my veins, and I've replaced my cojones with a pair of KT-88s. Ew. The big ones. That is how dedicated I am to the tube amp life. But even though I am approaching boomer status, even I can see that the times are changing. Amplifiers are getting smaller all the time, and sound guys are getting bigger egos all the time. In the age-old battle of dragging your favorite 100-pound 4x12 and 2 of your favorite monster 100-watt tube amps up on stage at your local venue, dial in your perfect tone that you have been waiting years to show to the other band members at the show because they're gonna be the only ones watching, just to have that slimy sound guy ask you to turn your amp down to -10. It's a ton of work for very little reward. But if you find yourself unfortunate enough to be playing in bands and genres that are so small that the sound guy doesn't even exist, the sound guy is whatever person at that venue that just happens to have an old PV 8-channel powered mixer and a couple of carpeted 12-inch mains that are covered in cat piss and shame, well, you kind of need those tube amps because you need that volume and that headroom to cut through the inevitable noise of not only your band members, but also of the hard surfaces of the basements or the local VFWs that you're gonna be playing. So really, what I'm trying to say with this extremely long-winded intro is that the guitar world is trending towards smaller amplifiers, and not only smaller amplifiers, but amplifiers in the form of pedals, whether they be analog or digital. And with that trend has come a bunch of pedal-sized power amps. And surprisingly, with the technology that we have today, they are able to provide the volume and the headroom that we need when used properly. But they are still somewhat big and bulky for a single pedal board, so if you're trying to run a 2-amp setup, you either need a massive pedal board, or you can do what I did for the first 15 years of playing in a band, and throw all your pedals loose in a plastic bag and hope that you can remember how to set them up correctly once it's time to get to the show. So yeah, obviously not ideal, which is why when I spoke to Seymour Duncan about a year ago and we talked about their Power Stage line and they told me about their upcoming stereo version of the Seymour Duncan Power Stage, I immediately got excited because I'm like, dude, that is gonna give me the ability to put a 2 amplifier rig on a single pedal board. And as I'm going to show you today, 2 is always better than 1 because more is more. I mean, look around, I have no friends. So based around Seymour Duncan's Power Stage 100 Stereo, I'm going to show you how to set up a 2 100-watt amplifier rig on a small pedal board and make it sound
absolutely massive.
Real quick, before we get into this though, I do want to let you know Seymour Duncan has provided the Power Stage 100 Stereo for me to make this video, and they are paying me to share it with you guys here on the channel. So in the sake of full transparency, yes, this is absolutely a sponsored video. Feel free to take everything that I have to say with a massive grain of salt. You're more than fair to do so. Just know I'm gonna give you my honest thoughts and opinions, as I always do. Keep that in mind. Pointing to my cheekbone. So real quick, let's go through the items that I'm gonna be using to build this pedal board. And then more importantly, let's hear it in a couple of different real world scenarios. And I probably should be showing it to you while I'm talking about it. So here it is. It looks basically just like the Power Stage 200, which I have right here, but there are a couple of key differences. On the backs of both of these power amps, as you can see, they both do have 2 speaker outputs, but on the Power Stage 200, they are both part of the same power amp and they can't be split left and right in the true stereo sense. Whereas on the Power Stage 100 Stereo, you have the 2 outputs, but one is labeled left and one is labeled right, and that's because they both have their own dedicated 100-watt output. On top of that, we have the dual XLR outputs that have built-in cab simulation on them, so you can send each one of your individual inputs to an individual stereo output. It's cool stuff. The other key difference between these two being that we now have both a high mid and a low mid control, which I absolutely love. It gives you more control over the overall sound of the power amp, and then we have the ability to bypass that EQ with a single switch. So if we just want the flat power amp itself, click that switch and it does not affect our balanced out, which has its own EQ on off switch. Really, really cool functionality on this thing. I think they did a great job with the design. Moving on to the preamps or the amplifier simulations that we're gonna use for this pedal board build. We've got both of the UAFX high gain amplifier pedals that I demoed on my channel recently, the Anti 1992 high gain amplifier and the Knuckles 92 Rev F dual rec amplifier. Both of these are digital recreations of a 5150 and a rectifier respectively, complete with, importantly, a noise gate and an overdrive on each one of these pedals. And they have also built in all of the switches and the functionalities that the real amplifiers have into these pedals, so you can fine tune and tweak them to make sure that they sound as close to the real thing as possible. And the great thing is these both have the power amp sounds of these amplifiers baked into them. And with the Seymour Duncan Power Stage 100 stereo, if we want to bypass that EQ section on the power amp itself, then it'll be giving us a flat sound signature, and these pedals will sound basically exactly as they were designed and intended to sound. And let's face it, 5150 and a dual rectifier, that is a late 90s, early 2000s hardcore classic rig, and I felt like it just made perfect sense for this video, so that's what we're gonna use. The final pedal that we are going to use is the Radial Twin City Bones AVY pedal, and this is what is going to split our signal in between the two different preamps or the amps in a box that will then send them individually to their own left and right inputs on the Power Stage 100 stereo. And it's got a couple features on this pedal that are very, very important when you are running a stereo rig, but we'll get into that during the demonstration. And then finally, we are putting all of this on a Gator pedal board. I don't remember exactly what model pedal board that this is, but it literally, as you guys will see once I build this pedal board, with the items that we are using, it is the absolute perfect size, and it comes with its own dedicated, perfectly sized pedal board bag. So literally all of this stuff will fit perfectly on this pedal board within the bag, and our whole 2 100-watt amplifier rig will fit within that bag in one hand. You're getting a lot for your money. So with that said, let's go mad scientist throw this bad boy together, and most importantly, let's hear some sick tones. Come on. All right, guys, so we have the first of two setups going here. We have the beautifully built pedal board, an absolute work of art. People should pay me to do this for them. I'm just kidding. It is obviously a dumpster fire, but I put it together using the spare cables that I had laying around. So come here, little break. As you can see, we've got both of our UAFX preamp pedals here. We've got the Knuckles and the 1992 Anti going into the Power Stage 100 stereo. The Knuckles is going into the right input and the Anti is going into the left input, and those stereo speaker outputs are going into the stereo speaker inputs of my Mesa traditional 412 here with the stock 1992 stock 1999 vintage 30s. I have an SM57 on each set of speakers here. So one set of speakers I will pan hard left, one set of speakers I will pan hard right. And this setup is essentially the same as running two separate amplifiers into the stereo inputs on this Mesa cabinet. And I just think it's cool as hell to have two 100-watt amplifiers going into one cab that all fit on a single pedal board. Like, it's pretty crazy. So obviously I just played a riff, and honestly, I'm not exactly sure how it's gonna sound because I haven't listened to the playback of this yet, but here in the room, it sounds surprisingly awesome. I would definitely not be mad at having to use this for my live rig at all. So real quick, let's revisit that intro tone, and then I'm going to actually move on pretty quickly to our second setup, which is going to be two separate cabs with this same setup here for, again, reasons that I will explain in just a moment. And then finally, we're gonna also use the balanced outs on the Duncan Power Stage 100. That way you guys can just kind of see the full versatility of this pedal. But yeah, back to that intro tone. I was using this ridiculous West Creek Revenge Amazon Snakebite Explorer ripoff with the recently installed Dave Mustaine Thrash Factor set from Seymour Duncan, and it sounds like this. All right, so obviously very nasty tone, super punchy in the low end, very saturated, very thick, but it absolutely still has the mids to cut through, and that is primarily because we are utilizing that upper mid quite heavily on the Duncan Power Stage 100. But honestly, even when I had this switch out, taking the EQ out on the Power Stage 100, I found it to be closer to what I was expecting when just plugging the pedals straight in. Just for a quick comparison. So as you can see, it's definitely flatter, obviously, when pulling the EQ out. But earlier, I actually was just dialing in the pedals a little bit brighter, kind of messing around with settings and stuff, and I really didn't feel like the EQ ended up being super necessary. The only reason I wanted it is because I did just kind of want that upper mid bite to kind of be able to cut through just in case. But I found myself liking the Power Stage 100. I don't know if it's been differently voiced at all. Maybe it's all in my head. A lot of things are all in my head, except for smart things. It didn't seem to be as, like, extremely flat, I guess, if that makes any sense. But we're gonna pop it back on because I like tones that are extremely aggressive. Dude, that's fun. All right, so just to give you a side-to-side comparison of the tones, again, I am going to switch the ABY switch over to toggle between both of them. So on the B switch here, we are hearing the rectifier pedal, the knuckles. And on the A switch, it is the anti. So obviously, very, very clearly, both of these pedals sound very, very close to their namesakes, the pedals that they are modeled after. And when you stack them together, all right, that is a lot of fun. Two quick things I want to talk about real quick. One of the reasons that I said that this ABY switch is very important is because this has a phase reverse switch on it. And a lot of times when you are pairing two different amplifiers, especially if you're pairing them into the same cabinet, that phase flip is going to be needed in order to make sure that your amplifiers are in phase together and not phasing out and basically just completely ruining your tone. I'm gonna flip that switch real quick and show you exactly what I'm talking about. That is why when you get an ABY switch, you definitely want to get one like this. because even if you are putting them into the same power amp like the Power Stage 100, no matter what two amplifiers you run together into a single cabinet, you are going to experience some level of phasing between the two, even with the switch on this pedal. And that's why running any 2 amp setup into 2 separate dedicated cabs with their own separate dedicated internal volumes, meaning cab spaces or chambers or whatever the hell you want to call it, I don't care, shut up, is going to greatly alleviate that. And I think you guys will be able to see once we have 2 different cabs hooked up to this setup, it's gonna just be overall clearer and punchier. It sounds awesome the way it is. It sounds very thick and full. But when we separate it into 2 separate cabs, I think that you're going to hear pretty much exactly what I'm talking about. But you'll still tell me I'm wrong in the comments. Let's go. All right, guys, so as you can see, we now have our super duper, scooper pooper double cab setup here. I now have this 2 amp rig using the Power Stage 100 split between the Mesa 4x12 that we were just using and an Emperor 4x12 with 4 Mesa 8 ohm vintage 30s in it. And believe it or not, these cabs sound very different. Each cab has an SM57 on it, and again, the rig is being split with the rectifier going into the rectifier cab and the 5150 going into the Emperor cab, and it sounds like this. All right, guys, so again, this particular setup, very, very thick. Even between the 2 cabs, we are getting a definitely more punch, more like note separation. It's still thick, but it's just kind of cleaned up some of the frequencies a little bit. And that last riff was actually one of my band Human Animals riffs from one of our earlier records. And our guitarist, Adam, for the longest time, his setup has been a 5150 and a dual rectifier into a Mesa cab. And I gotta say, the whole time I was playing that riff, it just sounded exactly like Human Animal sounds in the practice room, in the live space. Like, all I could think of is, wow, this sounds really, really close to Adam's rig. And considering that I am getting that out of this tiny little pedal board, as opposed to 2 massive and very expensive tube amps, pretty cool. So real quick, let's A/B those tones between the 2 different cabs, just for fun. And just because I'm having a good time, I'm actually going to switch the 2 cabs now. So we are going to put the Anti into the Mesa cab and the Knuckles into the Emperor cab, and you guys can hear what I'm talking about with these 2 cabinets sounding very different. So the Knuckles through the Emperor cab. So there's that, and again, all of this is going through one singular power amp. We're able to do all of this with one single power amp. Super cool, man. I'm having a lot of fun. I can't wait to start experimenting with more pedals and more options with the Power Stage 100, but seriously, as it is set up right now, easy backup rig for Human Animal. In fact, I think I'm just gonna start bringing this on a pedal board to gigs, just in case anything ever happens to whatever tube amp that I bring with me, because this as a backup would honestly be pretty sick. So yeah, that is gonna do it for me today, guys. What did you think about the tones that I was getting through this? What do you think about the features, the versatility? Are there any features that you feel like should be on here that maybe weren't included? And of course, if you have one of these and you've done some crazy tone experiments or setups, I'd love to hear what they are. Put it down below in the comments. I'll be sure to meet you guys down there to chat about it. If you guys would like to pick up any of the gear used in this video, I will have affiliate links to Sweetwater, Guitar Center, and Zounds. And if you guys purchase it through those affiliate links, not only do I get a little kickback, but it actually goes a long way in helping me to be able to do more cool stuff like this with different companies. And I really genuinely appreciate the support. Thank you so much to Seymour Duncan for sending this bad boy out and for allowing me to make this video here with you guys on the channel per my request. If you liked the video, hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, subscribe if you like what went on here today, because there's gonna be more. Thanks so much for watching, guys. Kyle here again. I don't know what I'm doing with my hands. Pew pew. See you later. Goodbye. I'm gonna go punch myself. You know what this wall is missing? Another amp. There we go.